You're welcome back. Well, a very red AFEX commodity summary board is what we have for the week ended 29th of August, 2022. Joining us to explain this and much more is Chinwenle Lemoha, Associate Strategy and Corporate Finance with AFEX. She's joining us from our Abuja studio. Hi, Chinwe. Good morning. I apologize for that. I actually did practice before now, but just got off my mouth. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Awesome. So can you tell us what's happening? We saw a red summary board. Give us the details of activities for the weekend at the 29th of August.
All right. If you look at the table in front of you, you will find that there was a general decline in the value of transactions which occurred on the exchange in the week under consideration. So the total turnover, which is equivalent to the total value of transactions, declined by a factor of 81.01%. The total value of transactions also declined by 89.52% from 6.9 million and closed the week at 723,000. So for the week, we had a total turnover of 0.5 and from 0.5 and we had, which was exchanged in 252 deals across the exchange. For the total commodities we had this week, maize was the clean sorghum was the top gainer, which closed the week at 295.54 naira per kilogram. For the fourth consecutive week, maize declined by 0.37% and closed the week at 193.70 kg per naira. Paddy rice remained constant, and every other commodity on the exchange remained constant. Paddy rice closed the week at 272.81 naira per kilogram. Soybean also remained constant and experienced no fluctuations, closing the week at 391.89 naira per kilogram. Clean sesame remained constant, closing the week at 790 naira per kilogram. Wheat remained constant, closed the week at 380 naira per kilogram. Cashew nuts remained constant, closed the week at 689.88 naira per kilogram. Ginger remained constant too, experienced no significant fluctuations, closed the week at 1,020.64 naira per kilogram. And cocoa experienced the same. Cocoa experienced no significant change, and closed the week at 1,198.3 naira per kilogram. For more information, kindly visit africaexchange.com and follow our social media handles at AFEX Nigeria and COMEX at AFEX, COMEX by AFEX. Thank you.
All right, Chinwenle Lemoha, thank you so much for the details of the market. We saw a lot of commodities there just remaining constant. Meanwhile, prices globally of food prices are reducing. But thank you so much, Associate Strategy and Corporate Finance with AFEX. Thanks for your time. Well, still staying with AFEX, we have joining us virtually from here in Lagos, Oluwafunto Olajemo. She's the Vice President, Financial Market, AFEX. And she'll be talking about SMEs. Well, needless to say, agri-SMEs constitute an important component of the food system in Nigeria, in Africa, yet they report significantly higher obstacles to their operation and growth. AFEX is always interested in this, and they discuss pathways to solve key problems faced by agri-SMEs in accessing finance, which will contribute greatly to food system and food security in Nigeria. So hi, Oluwafunto, good morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So what's causing this persistent gap in agri-SME financing in the country?
Okay, thank you very much. Again, the previous session you had before now talked extensively about the contribution of agriculture to the economy, but yet it is still the sector of the economy that has largely suffered funding from all sectors, whether it's from the public or from the private sector. According to AgriLogic, the agri-SME has a funding gap, a working capital funding gap of about 70 billion naira annually and another 70 billion naira investment in assets. However, a lot of them also did express difficulty in accessing funding or being able to access the required funding to run their businesses. And a number of reasons are responsible for this. First is the non-availability of a suitable financing instrument. So if you look at the traditional lending instrument, they do not fit properly to what the agri-SMEs would typically need because of the seasonality behind their operations. So the traditional credit product does not meet the need of the agri-SME. There's also lack of data and sometimes data asymmetry because for anyone to finance or fund any business, you need data to assess the credit worthiness. Because of, again, lack of data, a lot of financial institutions are unable to assess the credit worthiness of these SMEs. There's also the part of the SMEs themselves, whereby they are not even credit ready. A lot of these agri-SMEs run their businesses like personal operations. So there's no proper bookkeeping, there's no proper tracking of their operations, and which then makes it even more difficult for the financial institutions or for fund providers to be able to assess the credit worthiness of these SMEs. And one more is also the mismatch between the collateral requirements. So there are some agri-SMEs that are funding ready, and they could access the fund and their funds to finance the operations. But sometimes the requirements by the funding entity is way out of the league of some of these agri-SMEs. So it's that with those key challenges, it continues to make the funding gap within the agri-SMEs persist.
So what are some of the necessary tools to de-risk, all of this?
So very interesting question, right? So when you're looking at de-risking, agriculture generally is a very largely bankable operations, and it just takes the fund provider to understand. There are quite a number of risk tools that you can leverage onto the risk that sector, but I'll just mention two of them. One is innovative products. When you create innovative product like we have on the AFEX Commodities Exchange, you're able to align those products to meet the operations, and in structuring such products, you're able to then identify the risks that are pertinent to the operations and then create risk mitigants. And examples are, again, just as I mentioned, products that are available on the exchange, such as the input financing that takes into consideration a yield insurance in case you have losses on production, or your collateralization using commodity as the asset for asset lending for processors. So that way you can then properly de-risk your funding to the agri-SMEs. There's also, again, the role of technology and data. Data we cannot overemphasize, because for anyone to provide funding, they need to make informed decision, right? So at AFEX, we have extensive infrastructure that we've put in place to help the collection of data, the analysis of data, and the interpretation of data. And with data available, you can then properly assess the credit risk worthiness. You can properly do policies that would enable and de-risk that sector for the SMEs.
Interesting to know that, of course, AFEX is deeply involved in it. But what specific structure do you have within AFEX to handle this?
So at AFEX, we have three cardinal operation points that we always work to, particularly for the value chain. We talk about access to market. Access to market in terms of being able to connect, provide a platform for the efficient trading of the commodities, and also access to market to be able to match fund seekers and fund providers together in an effective and efficient way. And also within the AFEX structure, we have expertise based on our experience in operating and financing across the value chain. We have expertise in creating innovative products that help agri-SMEs to access the funding, and also continue to innovate around those products to create more specific products as the market evolves. Again, we cannot oversize the role of technology and data. We have extensive technology infrastructure that allow the flow of data, allow the collection of data, allow the interpretation of data, so that financial institutions can assess the data, can interpret the data, and then make informed decisions. And some of these data are actually also useful for the other sectors, like the insurance sectors, to create innovative product that continues to de-risk that sector.
Well, obviously, as you have said, the need for data, proper data, cannot be overemphasized. So, Oluwafunto Olashimo, thank you so much, Vice President of Financial Markets with AFEX, for sharing your time with us this morning.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure always being with you.
All right, so now let's take a breather and then we'll come back and head to the markets.